Hello, and welcome to the Business Advocate Podcast. My name is Russell Carrier. I'm the owner of First Choice Business Brokers of East Tennessee and Nashville, and I am your host. Today, we are going to be talking about company culture. Does it really matter? We think so. My guest today is Eric Jackson with Element 47. He is the owner of a marketing company in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thanks, Russell. Appreciate you having me.
It is my pleasure. And just so everybody knows, Eric and I are part of a networking group, and that's where we met. And we happened upon this conversation when we did our one on one. And he brought to my attention how important company culture is. And I asked him why. So, Eric, why is company culture so important?
From my perspective in the business that I'm in, I believe very firmly that your company culture is the brand of your company. What, how you treat everything inside of your business, from the way you treat your people, the way your people treat each other, the way they treat the work that they do, their self-development, their communication styles, all of that is going to be displayed both internally and externally. And if that is not healthy and good, that will be displayed in the interactions that your team has with the rest of the world. So if you've got dysfunction internally, nobody trusts each other, there's no clear communication, you don't have standards, that stuff's not going to change the moment you touch reality and start talking to clients. It's going to come through and the client is going to understand that. So if you can fix those things and have a clear, consistent culture, you hire well, you demand that, hey, you're either going to play by these rules and act and work the way that we have defined, or you're not part of the team. That's the way I do it. And so when you've got things, everybody's on the same page as far as how the culture is working, and it's good, your clients will see that. And not every company is going to have the same sort of culture. The culture in every company is different, even in the same industry. But it needs to be clear.
I think most people, when they think company culture, they think HR. Honestly. And that's an HR function, right? That they implement as part of their business model. And everybody that get handed, this is our company culture, but are they going to are they actually fitting? Are they hiring to match that? I think is very important. The
Right.
second thing, you're a marketing guy.
Mhm.
You're not an HR guy. So,
Right.
I mean, there's two different sides to it, really, but not. I think it plays into both sides. So let's talk about really, so for like your business, because you and I talked about your business, of your culture and what it means to Element 47
Mhm.
and how you actually go about hiring people. I think because we can talk about branding, right? The
Yeah.
marketing side. But let's talk about the business side. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner. Hopefully, people that are listening to this are business owners. So let's talk about that. For you as a business owner, how did you develop your business culture, your company culture?
Yeah. So my previous company, I had a business partner, and I, during the summer, probably close to 10 years ago, I went on vacation and started reading the book Traction, which the Entrepreneur Operating System is built on. And I'm reading this book on the beach, Entrepreneur Vacation, right? So get to chapter 3, and it's all about culture and about how important it is to the function of a business. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is the problem that my partner and I have. So as we're implementing EOS, and I came back and said, we've got to do EOS. We've got to get on the same page. We've got to build accountability. And I was just enamored with the whole culture piece because it spoke to me. I could see that our culture was not well defined and that it affected every level of the business. And so when we started to implement EOS, I came up with a way to discover what our core values were. And the core values piece really meant probably the most to me because those are the very definable ways that we judge our actions. So we did that. It was extremely successful. We had a great session. I led that. My business partner, you know, he's the guy that's head down most of the time and doesn't really want to manage the business. And so EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, was a little difficult for him to swallow because it meant having an hour and a half long meeting every week. It's an operating system for running a small business. And if you know any of you guys that are listening have experienced this, you kind of do things based on the way you've always done them in the culture, the organizational cultures that you've been a part of. This kind of breaks that down into the most important parts. And every business has certain functions that have to be dealt with, HR being one of them, finance, operations, sales. So if you don't have accountability in all of those areas, things are not going to work well. And in order to have accountability, you have to have difficult conversations. So it requires that you have a leadership team meeting once a week. You've got to define who the leaders are, who are your A players who are responsible for those various areas, and make sure that you're addressing the issues that come up. You're going to have things that are not working well. And if you're going to grow and be better, you've got to hit those things head on. And all of those things are judged by what your culture is, at least in my organization, they are. So, I think we did a pretty good job of defining those. Ultimately, that business partnership didn't survive. We had a rather unique dissolution of the partnership. It was half managed services, so IT consulting, and then half marketing. And we basically split the bank account down the middle. My business partner kept the old name. I rebranded, took my team, and you could identify team members by when they walked in the door. Show me your phone. If you have an Android, you go with Mike. If you have an iPhone, you come with me. So we kept the same core values, and I'll just kind of walk you through those so you kind of get an understanding of what that looks like. And this is a conversation I have when we're hiring people today. I'm the last interview, and I tell them I'm going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to tell you some stories, and these stories are going to inform you about what it's going to be like for you to work at Element 47. Now, if what you hear sounds abhorrent to you, then you can, time out, stop the meeting at any time and go, I can't do this. This is not going to work for me. No harm, no foul. Because if you take the job and you're not aligned with us, you're going to have a terrible time. So those core values are really the first thing is we're hired to make things better for our clients. When they come to us, they have an idea of what success is going to be. There's this vision inside their head of what they're hiring us to do. And we have to be confident before we take them on as a client that we're going to be able to achieve that. We have to make it better for them. We have to know that what they're asking us to do is something that we're capable of doing, that we want to do, that we feel like it's going to be a good working relationship. So how can we make it better? So that's the external. We're making things better for our clients through marketing, helping them achieve very specific and measurable goals. Because if I can't measure it, they're going to get that check on their desk at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, and they're going to look at that check and go, are they making it better for me? And if the answer is no, I'm going to get a phone call and I'm getting fired. And I don't like that. So I don't want to waste their time and money, and our time and effort to have it end in getting fired. So internally, it's the same thing. like we have very specific expectations that have been put on us that we've agreed to, and we have to make things better for them. So we've got to bring all the resources to bear. We've got to have the right people in place, the right product mix, so that we meet those goals. And business operations can be messy, and we need to make sure that the things that we're doing are efficient and useful, that we're maximizing our time, and that we're delivering the right things. So that make it better. You have to want to improve on a regular basis. Our industry changes really, really rapidly, and there's a lot of education that has to happen. Maybe this is a company that really hasn't had a marketing effort before, so we have to educate and guide them and be willing to have difficult conversations. And I tell the client the same thing, and that speaks to our next core value: be bold. Without difficult conversations, progress cannot happen. And so we may introduce topics to them or processes to them that they've never heard of, or maybe they disagree with. And I tell them up front, you have to express to me your concern. Tell me what your questions are. And this is for anybody working with our team. You've got to say it. If you don't, bad news never gets better with age. We want to make sure that you're on the same page with us. Otherwise, we get fired out of the blue. I'll keep saying that phrase over and over again. So make it better. Everybody has to be wired to get things done, to improve processes. If you are the kind of person that is willing to step over this process that we've always done it that way, I don't like change, you're not going to work well in the organization. There's going to be change. We don't do change for change's sake. We want to make sure that every move that we make is intentional and that it brings value to the entire process. And in order to do that, we have to be bold and express those things. So in our business, we have to learn new things all the time. AI is really becoming very impactful in the marketing and advertising world. So, and there's some new tool every other day that we could possibly be using. So we need to be able to evaluate and learn what these new systems are. I've got a friend in the business who's got a new AI offering. She's going to completely transform her agency, and she really embodies that core value. Master the craft is what we call that. You have to constantly learn. You have to constantly learn because not only is the industry changing, but you're picking up new clients. They're doing things that maybe you don't completely understand. So can you get up to speed and understand those things and make sure that that's just who you are as an organization? And then lastly, when we get hired, they're hiring us for a very specific purpose. They're giving us the marketing function in their business. Maybe we're working with somebody internally who's either a marketing director or they just happen to be the unlucky person who didn't step back and, hey, you're the marketing coordinator for us and you're going to work with Element 47. Well, we understand that we're going to share the load. We're going to be a mission critical part of their business, and we have to treat that relationship as such. So the whole not my job thing is not in our vocabulary. And internally, we have a team of 11. And so, not people take vacations, emergencies happen, people have to step away. So there are times where we'll have to do things that are not in our strong suit, but we've got to step up, fill that gap, and make sure that there's no gap in services and that person can go on the family vacation. They can attend to a sick relative or whatever. And you don't necessarily have to fix the problem yourself, but you've got to find the resources to get it fixed. So those four things: master the craft, make it better, be bold, share the load, define our organization. And when I tell those stories to people, they get a clear, concise picture of what it means. And my philosophy is that every organization ought to have that. And if you can't explain that, then you bring people on board or you bring on clients, and you have to figure out what the culture is through the relationship. And maybe you get 3 months in and go, I don't like this place at all. And it's probably because it was not defined and you had to stumble across it and figure it out in real time. And that creates bad client relationships and bad employee experiences, and you get turnover from that. So that's the long and short of. I felt like I was rambling there for a minute, but and a lot of people, and you mentioned HR, it's not an HR function. It's the leadership function. It is the owner of the business that really needs to define that. And just a case in point here, if I was leading a company that had a completely different culture that evolved because I had not defined it, I would not like working in my own company. If the owner really needs to enjoy that experience and has to connect with them. So ultimately, those core values and that definition of culture begins and ends with the leader.
100% agree that the leader, the business owner, determines what the culture is going to be. And if you don't define it up front, a culture will be created by the employees.
Yep.
And as you just pointed out, Eric, you end up not liking your own business. In a nutshell, and I'm going to give an example. You create a culture, you as a business say, we are going to be fast and responsive. We are going to be courteous and respectful. We'll just stick with those two.
Mm-hmm.
And you go out and start hiring employees that are not fast and responsible. And you end up finding out because of the service they're providing to your clients. And you end up hearing it once they're unhappy and are no longer your clients. You hopefully are calling them and asking them why'd you leave? What happened? And they find out, well, things took too long. It wasn't fast. Because typically when you build this culture and the idea of what your business is going to be, you communicate that out to the public. This is who we are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I look at it and number one, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be fancy, but if this is what you want, make sure it's what you're getting. And Eric, you've nailed this in our conversations because I know you just made a couple of hires and I know it took you a while and you interviewed a lot of candidates. And one of the criteria that you kept bringing back to me in our conversations, well, they really didn't fit our culture. Great resume, but they didn't fit our culture. So I know everybody struggles right now with hiring people. So do you pick the resume over fitting the culture? What do you say?
I would say absolutely not, because the addition of one person who is really talented that doesn't fit the culture is going to rot the organization. If you've got that one person who doesn't fit in and refuses to, or just simply can't fit in with the culture, everybody's going to have to work around that person. They're going to create a toxic environment, and they're all going to know that this is not a fit. And I've had that experience before where we had somebody that just wasn't a great fit. Either they'd been there for a long time and we outgrew them in terms of our culture continues to evolve in a very specific way, or maybe they just weren't the right hire from the very beginning. When you part ways with that person, everybody in the organization goes, man, thank God we can move on and actually, function in a good way. Everybody knows. Sometimes you as the leader are the last person that knows. So you have to keep your antenna up and make sure that you understand, how is each person in the organization functioning? Are they fitting in? Are they playing by the playbook? Otherwise, it's not going to end well.
So I'll give an example of a scenario in a previous business. I had a service business. We created window screens and door screens and patios. And this was back when I lived in Florida. And I was growing a team of installers. And I brought in a guy that had a really good resume. And we had a conversation. And our whole culture was we were bringing white collar to a blue collar industry.
Mhm.
We dressed nice. We drove brand new vehicles. And the last piece of our culture was do it right the first time.
Mhm.
And so I brought this gentleman in, and I say that loosely, gentleman. Uh, and he came in, I mean, and said, yes, I believe in doing I don't want to go back to a job site. We need to get it done the first time. And so I brought this guy on, and it was working out. And it was about 6 months into it, I started noticing that jobs weren't getting done right. And we had to start going out and fixing things and doing it correctly. And it ended up he was the piece of the puzzle that actually wasn't following our culture. He wasn't doing it right. And he actually started spreading that to my other installers. It's like, it's not a big deal. And there is a term that is used in construction. If I can't see it from my house, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And I caught wind of that. I was on the job site, I was working with the crew, and one of my installers said it. I completely lost it as the owner because that does not fit our culture at all.
Mhm.
I fired that guy on the spot. And I asked him, where did you hear this within our organization? And it ended up coming from that one guy. And so we had a meeting when we got back to the shop, and I had a blunt conversation. This is how we do our business. And he flat out said, I don't believe in that culture. We get the job done as fast as possible to get our money, which
Mhm.
completely blew out our whole philosophy. He got fired. The problem was he took the other installers with him because of the mindset. He corrupted our business.
Yeah.
And so, just as a word of advice to business owners, keep your ear low to the ground in your business. Don't just make assumptions that it is happening and your culture is being delivered on a daily basis. You have to be involved and engaged.
Mhm. You'll hear it in the language that people use every day. You have to be, like you said, you got to keep your ear to the ground. You've got to listen to what people are saying because they'll give you the clues. And if you don't act on them, as you described, it will rot the rest of the organization. The beautiful thing about a well-defined culture is you can judge somebody's performance by what's hanging on the wall. And in my company, we talk about the core values every single day. We use those phrases. Make it better and be bold are the two that we use the most often. And so if I have to have a confrontation with an employee like you did, I say, this is the way we do things, and you're not living up to this. And as you described, he didn't agree. Well, you don't have a choice at that point. You got to part ways, and you got to find somebody who believes in that culture. Maybe they're slower, but at least the job is getting done right the first time as you have defined it. That's what you sold. And again, culture is brand.
Exactly.
If you're not delivering that service or product as described, there's something wrong with the culture.
So we'll go back to the beginning of how do you create a culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? It starts at the leadership and with the owner. The person who starts the business manufactures, creates, and makes standard how is my business going to be ran. And we can actually talk for a long time about this, of the steps of how to create a culture and all the different aspects that you have to keep in mind. Just give me three. What are three areas that you would want to focus on creating culture for your business?
So number one, I believe is creating actionable core values. There's an example that I use in presentations. I will tell the audience, here are the core values. It's communication, respect, transparency, all these feel good, just single words. And then I revealed to them, well, these were and one of them was honesty and integrity. And it was Enron. Well, obviously they were not honest. They were cooking the books and created one of the biggest financial disasters in American history, in the history of the world. Went from a multi-billion-dollar organization to zero, and people went to jail because of this, and it changed the accounting industry because the firm that was doing their books were participating in this. So I think number one, core values that actually have action attached to them that you can tell stories around. You can't really tell a story around honesty. I think that's just like, taking a shower in the morning. That's just the cost of doing business. If you can't do that, if you can't be honest, why would I hire you? So the core values need to go a step deeper. And you'll notice that in our core values, each one is action. Master the craft, be bold, make it better, share the load. There's action there. So if you can create core values that people can understand and know that they're going to have to take action to do those things, it speaks well of them. The second would be, I think you really need to define things that you're simply not going to do as well. You need to make sure that you understand, everybody needs to understand just what's not acceptable in the organization and how to define what that is. So, the whole, it's not my job. You can't, everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to buy in. And if they can't do that and deeply understand it, and talk about the core values on a regular basis. Praise people when they do well, call people out privately when they don't. If you're not willing to have these difficult conversations and say, hey, this is what we all agreed to, you haven't performed well here. If they acknowledge it, fix it and move on. And we judge everybody once a quarter. How are you performing to these core values? You're a plus, a minus, or kind of on the fence, and bring it to their attention, then you're not gonna do well. And then when you create those core values, it really needs to be with your A players. Don't hand it off to HR. Don't do it in a 30-minute meeting. You need to have a well-defined process. And there are several Harvard Business Review articles that point to all of these things that are do's and don'ts. I actually keep them right here on my desk. There's Make Your Values Mean Something by Patrick Lencioni, who's a huge culture guru. Building Your Company's Vision by Jim Collins. We've all heard that name before. Good to Great guy. And there was one that was written recently, How to Tell If Your Perspective. No, excuse me, that's not the right one. Yes, Build a Corporate Culture That Works. And Aaron Meyer wrote this, and it walks you through, here are challenges that you need to discuss and see if your core values actually hold up to those challenges. So if you say, hey, we're all about business transparency, well, what if there's some big thing that we have to deal with? Are we going to hide that from the team, or are we going to just tell them about it? So, and it sounds like it's pretty easy. Well, we're transparent. Well, what if it's going to chase people away and you're going to lose employees? How do you bridge that gap? I mean, you've got to, and and then in this article it says, don't be a purist. There are times where you're going to have to make hard decisions, and they may not necessarily, you may have to have one-offs where, hey, we're going to not be completely transparent with this because it could be completely destructive, and it may not even come to fruition. It may not be necessary to go through with something that will, completely change the business and chase people away. So it's I probably didn't enumerate 1, 2, and 3 very well. I mean, as a leader, I think the most important thing is you need to educate yourself about what corporate culture really means. And those articles in chapter 3 of the book Traction by Gino Wickman, you can find it anywhere. That is a really great synopsis of how to do it and why it's important.
Okay, so what we'll do is, so everybody that's listening, if you are listening and not watching, we will have this broadcast on YouTube. We'll have links and we'll list out the books that Eric just mentioned. So if you want to reference those and do a little bit of research on building your business culture, those will be there for you. And no, it's not going to be links that we get paid on. Just go look it up yourself. We don't do that here. We are not about self-promotion. This is not about for us to make money. This is all about trying to help business owners. So just FYI.
Yeah.
So we're at the 31-minute mark, and we try to keep these right around 30 minutes for you guys that are listening, because we don't want to ramble on too long, and we know your time is valuable. There's a lot that we can actually discuss about this. We could go on and on about company culture. It's extremely important. If we haven't conveyed that, we may have to do this again and dig in a little bit deeper. So, Eric, last words, last thoughts.
If you are not willing to 100% commit to defining and installing core values and culture in your company, don't start. Because the worst thing that you could possibly do is tell the team, hey, we're gonna have this new initiative where we're going to define culture, and everybody's going to be judged on it by performance, and then you don't do it. That it's obvious that you're not serious, and you can't restart that process. So educate yourself very well. I got a mentor when I did it who guided me and helped me understand it. But it's kind of like working out. If it's something that you're not willing to do every day and pay attention to, you're not going to get fit. You're not going to have a fit culture. You can't do it. You can't go to the gym one time and be fit.
Well said. So if anybody has questions, or if they would want to contact you directly, how could they do that?
So our website is element47.co. You can reach out to me personally by emailing me at ej@element47.co. I said at the beginning, culture is brand. And so we end up working with a lot of our clients on culture. We just picked up a new client that they were so impressed with Brooke, who you've had a conversation with, that we want to talk more about this culture thing. So we're doing some projects for them, but they also want us to come in and have a conversation with them about how we can help them define their culture. And I'd be happy to talk to, when we were talking about it that day we had our one-on-one, I couldn't shut up. And now we're going over 30 minutes. It's like, I'm happy to talk about it anytime. And maybe help point you in the right direction. So, and ultimately you do have to understand this stuff as a leader and be able to manage it.
Awesome. Thank you. So everybody listening, company culture, it is not just a marketing thing. It's not just an HR thing. It doesn't just affect your employees. It also affects your clients. This is something that the business owner needs to implement in the beginning. If you're thinking about starting a business, put this at the top of the list so you know what kind of business you're going to be building and how you want to be perceived in the market. My name is Russ Carrier. I am the owner of First Choice Business Brokers of East Tennessee and Nashville. You've been listening to the Business Advocate Podcast. You can listen to us on pretty much everywhere. You can also see our mugs on YouTube. Look us up at the Business Advocate Podcast. You have to add podcast when you search for us. Please hit the like button if you liked it. If you want to automatically be notified when we come out with a new episode, hit subscribe and you will get that notification. We greatly appreciate it. As normal, any comments, suggestions, or things that you would like to learn about, please let me know. This channel is for you and only you. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.